This week we decided to work on our shrimp tank. So before we had it set up where we had a regular aquarium gravel on the bottom. We decided to take that out, and what we're doing is we're setting up in a kind of what's called low-tech method or Wallstead method. And basically with this we're using a layer of organic potting mix on the very bottom of the tank, and then we're ultimately going to be capping that with a bit of sand and gravel as well to kind of keep it from floating around in the tank. The idea behind it is that the potting mix is going to slowly release nutrients in the water for plants to uptake. So we are going to be putting plants into that gravel and soil mix at the bottom of the tank, and we're also probably going to have some floating plants up top. Before we decided to actually put any of the mix into the aquarium, I was kind of curious to see how much of it would sink on its own. So what I wound up doing was taking about a handful or two of it and putting it in a mason jar and just filling it with water and letting it sit for about 2 weeks. After a lot of it had become saturated with water, a fair bit of it actually sinks on its own. But one of the most interesting things I found is that when I looked really close in, I could see little things moving around. So I grabbed my camera to try to get a better look, and the stuff in there, there's definitely live aquatic, I'm not sure what they are, but live aquatic things in there. They're way too small for me to actually see. Probably without a microscope I wouldn't be able to see them. Even with my camera they look tiny. So they're like little specks of dust basically, is the closest thing in size I can tell you they are. But they're still there, which I just thought was really interesting, because all I did was took the jar, threw some potting mix in there, put some water in it, and just let it sit. It's not even in the most light or anything. Now, I don't really see any plants, but there's still life in there, so that's really cool. When we were putting the soil on the bottom, one of the things we wound up doing was purposely trying to make the back of the tank, as well as the sides, a little bit taller than the front of the tank. We know that looking from top down, you really can see all the bottom of the tank pretty easily, but we also have this in our living room in front of our couch, and we wanted to be able to see a little bit more of the bottom of the tank from a level that's more straight onto the tank. So by making the back a little bit taller, or the soil in the back of the tank a little bit taller or deeper, it makes it so that viewing the tank from the front on, we can actually see across the entire bottom of the tank and not just a slice from the side. The water in the tank right now is a bit cloudy, but that's okay because we're doing a fishless cycle, because we pretty much switched out everything in the tank besides the driftwood itself, and the filter is the same as well, but we're gonna re-go through this cycling process again anyway. So we're gonna give the filter a few days to try to work through a bit of that cloudiness, and we're also gonna do some water changes here in the near future as well to kind of clear up the appearance of the water. Now, we had this tank for a while sitting with driftwood in it, but unfortunately, one of the driftwood pieces it does not want to sink. After over 2 months of soaking in the water, it still doesn't want to sink on its own. So instead of waiting on that to try to make progress on this tank, we decided to go ahead and move that into a different container for the time being while it continues to soak, and move forward with this tank.